So, thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much, Jostein, inviting me to this exciting meeting. I may run into a little problem because I may have the problem focusing on my presentation and not looking around and checking this interesting architecture here. I will try to keep myself concentrate. So, what is about the color here? This is now brown. Okay. So I will structure my presentation and then I give you first a little bit of background of my organization located in the Netherlands. That is the Food Quality and Health Network. Then I will continue to talk about my topic. This is the topic of sustainable diets. And then I present a new program, an international program, the Organic Food System program. And at the end, I will present something in that program we call model regions. So the Food Quality and Health Network, that is an international network located in the Netherlands, containing a lot of different scientists from all over the world. From left to right, it's my colleague Flavio Paoletti. He's from the Italian Research Institute, the National Food Institute. Martild Huber, she is the director of the Institute for Positive Health. She developed this new dynamic health concept. Then Professor Carola Strassner from Germany, Münster University. She is an expert in public procurement. Then Susanne Bügel, she's my colleague at University of Copenhagen in Denmark. She's president of the Danish Nutritional Society. And last but not least, Eva Rembiakowska. She's from Warsaw University of Life Science, where I also hold a visiting professorship. We organized the first international conferences on organic food quality and health. We started in Prague in 2011. There were more than 200 scientists from all over the world. It was the first international recognized conference where we discuss, is there an extra in organic food quality? Is there a positive or no effect of organic food and health? And we continued in Warsaw to organize the next conference in 2013. So now I'm talking about the sustainable diet topic and the topic, and I will explain a little bit why I think it's important. This left picture over here, this is from Johan Röckström. You may know that picture. This is telling you something about our urgent problems according environment and our Earth. So they divided our Earth into different cakes, pieces of cakes. And you can see at 12 o'clock there is something red. At 4 o'clock there is something red. And at 8 o'clock there is something red. What are these red areas? These are the areas where we have a really urgent problem in environment. And this is at 12 o'clock climate change. We all know that. But much bigger, it's at 8 o'clock, this big, huge red area. And this is the loss in biodiversity. So the most important problem we are dealing with, according to our human impact on environment, is the loss in biodiversity, where our Earth is not able to rebalance anymore. We passed that threshold already. I ask myself why we do not discuss this much more. And I think maybe it's because we cannot turn that into pictures. We see pictures from thunderstorms, floodings, and that is impressing us. But we are not able to see the loss in biodiversity so obvious. On the other hand, according to our food system, I put the David from Michelangelo in Firenze. You may know that. And we fed David with the average Italian diet. And as you may see, that's the diet before. That is the David getting the Italian diet 100 years ago. And that is the diet of today. So you can see, to make it easy, on one hand, we have on the left side, we lost something, that's the loss in biodiversity. According to our food system, we are damaging. And on the other hand, we are gaining something, it's maybe on the wrong place. And when we look at the developing countries, but also starting in the developed countries, we have the so-called double burden in malnutrition. What means that on one hand, people are still suffering from chronic undernourishment, 790 million still. But on the other hand, much bigger proportion, 1.4 billion, are going to be obese. And we just discussed in Korea together with our friends from Bangladesh, how can we help to improve school meals? And they informed us that in Bangladesh, the problem is not so much the undernourishment anymore, it's that the children getting obese in one of the poorest countries in the world. And that is really shocking, and that is just a development from the last 5 to 10 years. That at the same place we are getting people undernourished and obese. And this is according, we do not eat the right things. This picture is showing that. So on the x-axis you have the amount of ultra-processed food in total energy intake. And on the y-axis you have obesity in adults. And you can see if you eat more ultra-processed food, you are getting more weight until you are obese. So there seems to be a direct relationship of more and stronger processed food with more salt, more sugars, and obesity. And you can see the countries, of course, United States is at the front, but you also can, I think, you can see Finland there, Norway there, and so on. So that means our society is eating more processed food. And I think we have also the problem that in organic, we are going to more process the food towards the convenience food, when I compare that 15 years ago. And then we have the next problem. And this problem is a paradigm. We as nutritionists, we do not know what a carrot is. We do not know what an apple is. Because we are dealing with nutrients. So for me, a carrot does not exist. They are just nutrients. This is our paradigm in mind. And we have to take care. Even if we now deal with organic food quality, what we do, we compare the content of nutrients in organic and non-organic. Because that's our paradigm. Is this quality? And I'm citing one of the most recognized scientists in that area, Mario Nestle from New York University. The problem with the nutrient by nutrient approach is that it takes the nutrient out of the context of food, the food out of the context of a diet, and the diet out of the context of lifestyle. And therefore my message is, let us not reduce organic to the nutrients. Let us not just take organic as an agricultural approach. Let's go back to the beginning of organic in the 20s, taking organic as a lifestyle or an essential part of the lifestyle, because that would really change how we look at things. Why it's so important? Because our consumption patterns are part of the lifestyles. And if I go to a family in Mali, they have completely different consumption patterns than the family from my neighbors in Germany. And this is influencing our food system dramatically because there are different demands how we produce the food. And there is a direct link between consumption and production. So we have to place that consumption issue much more in our focus. In 2014, with FQH, we organized a joint workshop with the World Agricultural Organization. It's a United Nations organization in Rome, FAO. And this workshop asked how organic may contribute to the new topic of sustainable diets and sustainable food systems. Is there a role of organic in this issue on the global scale? And since then, we developed the so-called organic food system, which I will now explain a little bit more. So what is sustainable diets about? And it's very interesting that in the last few years, we have very new developments going for a more holistic approach in the United Nations organization. On the left side, you can see the new healthy diet concept of the World Health Organization. And they are talking about food systems. I mean, that is really astonishing. Because normally, if you look at the health issues, people normally look, or scientists or people in the WHO, looking how food is affecting health. but they are not talking about how food is produced. But the very new approach is they also look at how food is produced. They are talking about food system, that these systems should be resilient, should be sustainable, should provide more diverse food. And there are recommendations about that. So for me, that is very, very interesting to follow, that one of the United Nations organizations, the World Health Organization, is not just focusing on health, it's taking the whole into account. And at the same time, the Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, the FAO, came up with a sustainable diet concept. And when you read that, sustainable diets are those diets with low environmental impact, which contributes to food and nutrition security and to healthy life for present and future generations. Sustainable diets are protective and respectful of biodiversity and ecosystems, culturally acceptable, accessible, economically fair and affordable, nutritionally adequate, safe and healthy, while optimizing natural and human resources. This is more or less reflecting the international principles of organic agriculture. And that is very astonishing. And this is just 3 years old. So this is the very new development. You may know from the recommendations, the so-called food pyramid. These are the things you may eat to stay healthy: vegetables, grain. These are the tasty ones you like, but you don't eat because they are not healthy. That are the cakes and meats. And interestingly, what is good for your health, it seems also good for the environment. So this is the so-called double pyramid, putting together health and sustainability environment. And that is a very new issue now. In organic, they did that since decades. But now I'm talking about new international developments. So now we look at food not only according to health, but also how it is produced. And we have another problem. And this problem is, I'm citing a Nature paper. Are you wondering what to prefer for dinner tonight? Data reveals that certain food choices greatly benefit both your health and the environment. But what to do with this evidence remains a challenge to society. And this is the so-called knowledge or values action gap. We know, but we don't do. So when you look how many people are following the national recommendations, you will see this is 0.000000001%. Nearly no. No one is really following the recommendations. So we know, but we don't do. And that is the main problem. And what should we do? And what they propose is, let us inform the consumers not only of how the food is according to health and nutrition, but also give the information of how is the food produced. And this is essential task for organic. This is what organic is doing. And the next is that we should regulate the production process. I just showed you the picture of ultra-processing food. Should we continue like that, or should we do some interventions there? And here we have a regulation. Although some people don't like that we have a regulation, but nevertheless we have, and we can base on that. Also the European Union, the European Commission, they come up with a new definition, and they want to have now a food system approach, understanding the complexity. They move from a food chain to a food system approach where things should be more resilient, resource efficient, environmentally smart, sustainable processing, healthy diets. You can see how these terms are now popping up everywhere. It's very interesting. And there is a key challenge for healthy lifestyles, that the research should address the affordability and high quality of the food, the traceability, and when it comes to measurement, it should look at all the 3 pathways of sustainability, not only environment, but also economy and society. And therefore, I think, let's take organic as a model for that. Let's bring into the discussions the organic food system as an interesting model and living laboratory. And maybe a better practice example. Let's not just go on agriculture. Let's include processing also in, and trade and transport and consumption, in order to show the world here is organic as a model. And therefore we think that the organic food system should act as a model for comparing and combining not only sustainable production, but also sustainable consumption. So this is our process. We had the first meeting with the FAO in 2014. Then we invited nearly 100 scientists from all, and practitioners from all over the world to UK at the Organic Research Center. We started the program in Berlin during the nutritional conference. We launched that doing Biofach in Nuremberg, and we had in Copenhagen in April our first starting workshop with all the projects. We will continue. In 2 weeks I will be in Roma presenting the organic food system to FAO as a model. Then we will go to Cape Town in South Africa to show organic food system as a model for public health nutrition. And then we will meet Jaakko, I don't know where he is now, Jaakko in Helsinki, to continue our internal meetings. This international network, since 1 year, is a very fast-growing network. Now we have 74 partners from 31 countries around the world. We have already started or applied 5 different projects, and we are planning to contribute to the IFOAM World Congress in India to 2017. So why I think organic is an ideal system to study is that organic is taking place in all different continents. We have data from 160 countries. Organic agriculture is nearly everywhere in the world. And we have defined regulations. We have a vision laid down in the IFOAM principles. We have the availability of data. We have a lot of local actors. And interestingly, when we look at the consumption, that is the picture to the right, organic consumers are more healthy. Here, that is a scientific evidence through papers. Why organic consumers are more healthy? Because they choose more of the healthy product. That's a very interesting thing, just discovered in the last 2 years in France and Germany. Has an organic an effect? This is the latest Nature paper from John Rigonald in the United States, and he checked the organic and the conventional agriculture, and he compared through these different parameters like soil quality, yield, nutritional quality, pesticides, and so on. And as you can see, in most of these parameters, these areas here are enlarged, except yield, what means that organic is really performing better than the non-organic agriculture on average. And that is, I think, a very inspiring figure where we can look at and where we can also make organic better. I think that is also an important issue for the future. But nevertheless, this Nature paper is just comparing and coming to the conclusion that in most of the cases, organic performs better than non-organic. So how to do, what are we doing now? We want to take organic as a food system. That means we have to go really from organic as an agricultural method to organic as a food system. We have to include much more processing. That is wonderful in the Italia community where you really do that public procurement. We have to take this into account. But we also have to account how we address that to consumer, how we put the consumer into the system. And we do also practical things. This is that we do case studies, that we do new model regions around the world in order to show the potential of organic for the world. What means that we go from a food chain approach from the field to the consumer, to the fork or the sticks. We have to enlarge that, because if we just follow a food chain approach, we do not take into account other things like science, like social things, like education, which is not primarily a food chain part. So that's very important that we really take the holistic view in organic to reality and not just talk about, but do it and implement that in our strategic planning and our daily things. So what are the key questions we are dealing with taking it? The first is, how do you come to criteria to measure something? Because if you want to make recommendations, if you want to go to politics, that they should change some of the politics, you have to measure something, you have to document something. So how to come from the target to criteria, how to come from the criteria, and this in the middle, this picture, this wonderful flower there, these are all different sustainability criteria. You can measure a lot. but which kind are the essential ones? I will give you an example. If we measure the impact of food on sustainability, how we do is this as scientists today. We reduce the problem. We do not measure the impact of food on sustainability. We measure the impact of food on greenhouse gas emissions only. So we take from the whole sustainability only one single parameter and we measure. What is the consequence? The consequence is that the recommendation will be keep the cows in closed stables. Do not let them out. Because if you put them in closed stables, you can put the methane and the CO2 in there and clean it. Don't put plants in nature. Keep them in the cellar with hydroponics and LED artificial light. Because then you can reduce the CO2 and methane and whatever you have emission and the pesticides. So if we reduce our environment, to one single parameter, and this is what we are doing, we are coming up with really crazy recommendations. And this is what is going on today. So we have to stand there and say, hey, sustainability cannot be reduced to one single parameter. Our health is not just our blood pressure. But when you look at studies testing the impact of food on health, what do? We reduce ourselves to our blood pressure. And this is where we are coming up with studies. So this is a fundamental problem we have to deal with, and we have to be aware that our health is not just blood pressure. It's not just the beta-carotene content in my serum. No, I feel completely different when I check my own health. And if we talk about sustainability, it's not just one single parameter. This is much more. And if we would overcome that, how we can bring that to the consumers? How we can turn recommendations, this is a fundamental problem, how we can turn recommendations into the informations to the consumer, that the consumer is really able to act. We are consumers. Are we buy 100% organic? Are we consequent enough? I mean, yesterday I enjoyed very much the very sweet cake over here because I like to eat some sweet. And of course I eat the meat. I can tell you, we will not solve the sustainability problems of our earth without reducing our meat consumption. So organic cannot feed the world if we do not reduce the meat consumption. On the other hand, let's go vegan. Let's avoid all the cows. Put just the cow off. Should we put the cows off? Yes, from a methane point of view, it would be very valuable. But then again, we reduce the value of a cow for only her methane production. This is stupid. But we have to discuss this very heavily and seriously. Okay, so that means we have to go global. These are the model regions. These are the partners of our organic food system program, where BERAS is playing a very essential part. And you may recognize some of the dots are according to BERAS International. Why it's so important? Because we cannot find a single solution just for the Scandinavian countries. We have to check how it is in Ghana. What would be if we increased organic in Ghana? Do they just produce the food for us and they stay with the conventional food? Maybe imported from the United States or from us? Or should we enhance local food communities over there? So is organic for Africa just a source of products for export? Or is organic helping the people to overcome their problems in Africa? These are huge problems we have to discuss. This is not just that we solve our problems here in Sweden or Denmark. We really have to discuss that on a global scale because we are talking about a global food chain and a global problem. So the model regions in the organic food system program, they go for education and training. They go for local learning centers, an essential part of BERAS. You can see how we took up BERAS concepts into the organic food system programs to enlarge that. And we want also to talk about an organic diet. Can we work on an organic diet? Does an organic diet exist? What would be if people turn to 100% organic? Has this a real impact on the society, on the food actors. So if one of you, some of you here are already partners. I know yesterday I met some people who are already in this project. So being part of that network means being part of a global United Nations framework with a high recognition. We contribute to global and national policy making activities because it's very important to know that what we are doing is not la polar. We are preparing the criteria and the tools for the United Nations program. And for what is this for? This is for providing the countries, the governments, with criteria and tools. So we want to have best practice examples. Please, if you have a best practice example, say to Jostein that we can take it up and show and say, yes, we have some of the best practice examples already there. But we also want to give scientific support, so we want to document, to monitor that what we are talking about is not just fake, it's really scientific based. And you can find more information on our webpage, www.organicfoodsystem.net. And in the afternoon during the workshop, if you have questions or in the break, just contact me and let's discuss it. Thank you very much for your attention.